Good afternoon, Fouché Way family. This is Patricia Fitzgerald, and I'm here at the Brandon Fouché Dog Rehabilitation Center in Los Angeles. And today we have a very special guest, Gary Cassera, who has come to visit Brandon. And Gary is a dog behaviorist who's from Northern California, and he came here to share some insights and ask some questions and explore a lot of the varieties of the ways we look at dog psychology, and we're looking to gain some insights from Gary and from Brandon. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Gary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your qualifications, your passions, anything you'd like to share as an intro?
Absolutely. Like Patricia said, my name is Gary Cassera. I lived in New Jersey for 32 years. I moved out to California 2 years ago. In New Jersey, I have a pack walk and dog walking business that's been in operation for 7 years now, and we do large group walks. We do a little bit of in-home pet care. We specialize in the dogs that need a little bit more attention, a little bit more help on the leash, not your average happy-go-lucky golden retriever. And those customers are very helpful, are very thankful that we are able to help them out. I've had customers that hadn't been on vacations in 5 years because they were afraid their dog was going to bite somebody or whatever, and I had a lady cry in my arms, literally saying, "I can't believe I can go on vacation." And I remember her, so she's still a client to this day. But so I did that for many years, and I got involved with just saying, "Hey, I want to learn more. I want to get these two dogs together, or these two dogs together, or why is this happening or that happening?" So I did like everybody else does. I got online and started poking around, looking for books and videos and websites, and I was blessed to find a couple people that were at a point where they were in the growing phase themselves, but already had gone through a couple speed bumps on the learning pathway of dog training, and they showed me where I could save some time and who to learn certain tools from and different strategies for training. And I've spent probably the last 5 years traveling and being with some of the best dog trainers, behaviorists, animal, whatever you want to call them, just really intelligent, well thought out people. And I'm right now just trying to put the whole salad together to be what I really want to share with people.
Great. We're so glad to have you here today, and thanks for sharing.
Right.
So Gary, I was wondering, you recently connected with Brandon,
Mm-hmm.
and what about Brandon and the Fouché Way piqued your interest, and what kind of insights are you looking to gain as you connect with Brandon?
Sure. So like I said in the beginning, the first 5 years of my business, it was me in the woods with the dogs. I was hiking, very primal, people would say. I really enjoy just being with the dogs. And then I started to watch videos and getting more intrigued in how to manipulate behavior, and I started to get interested in little more formal things, retrieving and healing and play skills and some different things. So I started getting a little bit more involved there, and I feel like I've abandoned a little bit of where my heart is, which is in the woods with the dogs. So I've learned a lot about training and managing motivation and how to create precise behaviors and create good criteria. But I want to get back into a little bit more of what my dog's emotional state is as he is as a being, and not something that I've created through repetition of training or the possibilities of trainings or the environment he's in creating the arousal. So I've wanted to come to what I feel is a damn good expert.
Right. So Gary, you touched upon an important piece, which is the emotional state of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then how the dogs pick up on that and their emotional state. And I know Brandon really has a great emphasis on that and has a lot of insights to share. So perhaps, Brandon, you can give us some of your expertise and insights on the emotional states necessary.
You know, I'm happy to hear this. Anytime I hear someone that's talking like this, intelligently about a subject that is so controversial, it excites me, because it just lets me know that no matter how far we go, even in our personal life, the things that we do, we tend to come back to the simple thing, right?
They always say go with your gut.
We always come back to smelling the flowers, watching the sunset, or right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I heard from what you just said. And I laughed because I remember in the beginning, a lot of people don't know this story about me, but it actually started in the Mojave Desert for me, living with the dogs and raising puppies and having them do just dog things and living from a concept of observation rather than interfering with the behaviors of dogs, and seeing that aggression was really the highest form of communication. You know, it's just dogs trying to communicate with each other through what we would consider to be aggressive behavior or dominant behavior, which today has, for some strange reason, become a bad word, right? We don't want to hear about discipline. We don't want to hear about domination. We don't want to hear about aggression. But when I was growing up, that's all I saw with the dogs. Now, if you grow up looking at that, and you start in the beginning and you end up on the end of it, in other words, you see the aggression, the dominance, the hierarchy, the sense of entitlement, and then on the other side you see dogs come together and be friends and live together, right? Then you don't see it as a bad word. You see it for what it is, right? And so when I hear this concept of positive and negative reinforcement, I say it's not positive or negative, it's nature, right? And so from that, I've developed this concept of relationship, which is more important, socialization, which is more important. I've seen animals socialize with creatures that you wouldn't think that they would, but they do it naturally, you know, without our interference. They do it not necessarily from the concept of predatory behavior, but from curiosity, you know. And so when we look at it like that, you say, wow, I've been looking at this thing wrong all my life, right? Until you grow up living in the woods with the dogs. And when I say grow up, I mean mentally watching them. And you say, you know what? I think this is the key. So you had the same feelings that I have. And what happens is when you get away from that, you feel this yearning inside of you. And some people can realize what they need to do with it, and some can't. And yes, it is going back into the woods. Not necessarily physically, but mentally remembering the things that you saw, the things that took place that were really relevant, you know? And then you do away with all the things that you've been reading and seeing in terms of training and cognitive learning and all of that stuff. Those are just words that human beings put on those things, right? The key is the socialization.
It's funny you say, because one of my friends who's does only sport work. That's all he ever thinks about. I'm staying with him this week.
Excuse me, let me ask you, when you say sport work, I want people to know.
Sure. So there's many different sports that have been created to test different attributes in dogs, anywhere from, there's dock diving now that's testing the jumping of the dog and speed retrieving, and then there's protection sports which have an obedience component, a jumping component, some type of biting component. There's agility. There's a lot of ways.
Okay.
When I say sport work, things that we're trying to get the dog motivated. People might also say working type dogs.
Okay.
So I'm staying with him this week, and he was funny. He was watching me hike down the hill in Malibu, and I didn't have any leashes on my dogs, and they know to stay behind me when I do my certain cue. And he started laughing, and he said people would watch that and like think that that's a training. And he said that's relationship. I said I've never trained them ever to do that.
Right.
That's, if anything, if I started adding words to it, now I'm adding complication to it. You just stay behind me, and when you start to come in front of me, I do something that makes you want to stay behind me, which is whatever, look at you, space, something.
Right.
So it was interesting to me that it is a lot of the talking has actually got in the way, I think, of being able to be with the dog and my expectations or the things that that you say, hey, lay down. Well, maybe he wants a circle twice. His hip hurts.
Right, exactly.
Calm down. Like, slow down a little bit. So,
Fantastic.
so it was just interesting that you're saying that with the with the talking. I try to tell my clients, like, hey, maybe, if you're going to work on downs, maybe say it twice today. Maybe try to communicate other ways besides the way you do.
Right.
Does he understand body language if you wave your hand or if you
Right.
pat him this way, or
Right.
do you have other ways that you can talk to this being that doesn't speak the same language?
Absolutely.
Whatever. So.
Wow, that's wonderful. I didn't expect that. That's great. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking in terms of positive reinforcement, which actually confuses the dog, because in nature, they don't reward for good behavior. There are no alphas handing out treats saying good girl, good boy. They only say what they don't like. And that means everything else they like,
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually, with training, we get this false sense of security that we are controlling a dog's behavior. And on one hand, it's correct, because we're teaching a dog to do something, but when we start to use it as a form of control, that's when we've lost it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because training is really just forcing a dog to do something that they already know how to do. Because I never met a dog that didn't know how to sit or lie down or stay away from something. I mean,
Yeah.
they come here knowing how to do that.
Yeah.
So when we insert ourselves in that, we, like you said, begin to complicate things.
Yeah.
Now the dog is focusing on an emotional thing that it's doing. It's emotionally connected to something, but then we enter in this verbalization, which contradicts what the dog is thinking, and the dog becomes confused. It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do talk too much to our dogs. In fact, I saw a program, it was on the news this morning, and they were talking about dogs being able to understand words. They can actually understand words. They do communicate with us that way, and that they did this study where they would speak words to dogs and then they would talk gibberish, just gibberish. And they realized that the gibberish dogs could ignore, but the specific words they could understand and know what it is that we wanted them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was interesting. And I've seen a lot of dogs who understand a lot of different words, but at the same time have a lot of behavioral problems. Because even though they understand the words, the actions that come about from understanding those words create neurotic behaviors.
Absolutely.
So the key is, what are we saying to our dogs? We may be speaking to them and they can understand words, but what are we actually saying?
And the mindset we're creating too. That's what I'm always going back to, is I couldn't imagine living in the stress of that. And that's where I'm kind of an outcast with not that I'm an outcast, because I'm really just a small peon in the whole pie, but it's the people that I hang around with, they think I'm different because I care more. If I take my dog out and she's acting like an idiot, I'm not taking her out to train anyway, because this is training. She's going away, and we're gonna work on that. It's not about healing today. It's about when you come out, you're just coming out of the car. Like the spinning and pacing and looking for everything and what's going to be my trigger so I can get adrenalized. No. I'll tell you when you can get adrenalized. Just relax. We're just going to walk over to the field. And the people that when I'm around, they look very, they're confused by that. And it's like, well, just tell her to lay down. And I'm like, yeah, I can train her. That's not a problem. I tell her to lay down, she'll lay down. It's not going to change how she feels about the environment, which is I'm laying down, but my mind is still ready to go do whatever it is that makes me, right now it's the value is out here. Instead of, for me, the value should always be with you and I. We're doing this together as a team, even if it doesn't look pretty.
Right.
We're going to run the agility field, and I'm going to laugh, and we're going to clap, and you get your toy, and who cares? But, that's kind of more where I'm coming back, right? I enjoy the preciseness, I enjoy the training of it, but I'm really starting to understand that the mindset that I want to live in, and why wouldn't I give that to somebody else?
Beautiful.
Like as
Beautifully
as
said.
another being,
Beautifully said. I want to say something. That's fantastic. There is a saying that dogs are simple-minded creatures, but they're able to perform complex tasks. That's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. When we take this journey, And we start here and we end here. And then we find that something's missing. We look at ourselves. A lot of times, things we do with our dogs, the journey that we take with our dogs, is a journey that we are actually taking within ourselves too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the things that we do with our dogs are either things that someone else has told us to do, society, or emotionally, these are the things that we feel. So, for example, if you are a person that's energetic, hyper, loud, an extrovert type person, then we will bring that out in our dogs, right? The problem with that is we really, ultimately what we want is a nice calm dog. We want a dog to socialize with things in a nice calm way. Ultimately, that's what we all want. When we look down that rabbit hole, and the light at the end of that tunnel is a calm dog. But we have spent so much energy focusing on what we feel inside ourselves that the dog now becomes confused with what he really should be doing. So, if you do work that revolves around agility, physical exercise that require excitement, right, in our dogs, that pumps them up, then they see life that way. They come out of the car seeing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately what we really want is to, like you said, just come out of the car and be calm.
Mm-hmm.
But how can the dog be that when you have imprinted
Yep.
that behavior on them?
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And that's where, like, I'll go to training and they'll see me walking my dog, and they're like, why are you walking her? And it's like, because she's a dog, and that's what dogs do. They go out and they migrate.
Mm-hmm.
They go walk.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just run down the field and bite things, or they don't just run around an agility field. Like, there's things that she needs. To me, this is an activity we do together,
Uh-huh.
and this is an activity I do for you. And then when I want you to lay on the couch, that's what you do for me. To me, that's the magic. I give to you, we do this together, I take my piece.
Right.
And that's, and,
Right.
and just to step back even more to what you were saying about it kind of reminded me with the positive reinforcement I've seen a lot of, like what you were saying, when you think something's not working, we look inside. And that's one of the things I think is most dishonest about the positive reinforcement community,
Mm-hmm.
is that some of the biggest proponents either haven't trained their dogs in that way,
Mm-hmm.
or are telling people to do it and doing things that they're not telling them to do. And that causes a huge problem, I think, with people, because then they start to say, well, why am I not getting those results?
Mm-hmm.
Why is she or why is he able to do this formula that they're selling to me? Why aren't I getting the results? Well, it's because they're not telling you that if the dog gets in front of them, they whack them. They're saying that they would hold the clicker for those kinds of things. So I like what you're saying with that self-evaluation. To me, I didn't think about it that way, but I see a lot of the people that come to me with that, they're on that journey of like, well, and they're almost embarrassed that they have to come to me because they're like, well, it didn't work that way.
Mm.
Well, that's okay. I mean, that's fine for the system.
Did you find yourself in that position where you were the same way? Is that why?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, to go kind of back what you said, like, when I came to that problem is I have the dog that does come out of the car and is looking around. What do I do now? I have to try to balance that out with something if this is what I want. If I want a dog to play and do these things that are more arousing, I have to spend just as much energy showing them there's other parts of life that aren't that arousing. So I read this really good book that was by a Schutzen trainer, which is a German protection sport, Schutzen with an S-H-U-T-Z-H-U-N-D. And he talked about conditioning and arousal around certain tools. And it was very clear to me when I would put my dog's harness on, she would have an elevated mindset. She'd start to look around, she would get excited. This was a predictor of arousal for her.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started to do when I read the book was I started putting that on and then doing obedience.
Mm-hmm.
So she got aroused thinking we were going to do protection work, but I tricked her and we did obedience. And you know what? I got better obedience because that tool automatically classically conditioned arousal in her.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started to do now is I took a tool that meant nothing to her, a halty, and I put a halty on her, and I put the halty on and I massage her, and I calm her down. We take nice peaceful walks, and everything is about slow down with the halty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at right now, where I'm trying to create that amount of balance and calmness that you're saying. I want to be able to look down the tunnel and say, I want to be able to take you to grandma's right now. and I want you to be totally at ease with all the commotion that's going on and realize none of that is anything to get aroused about. And also being able to say, great job, let's go out and play some Frisbee. And I'm very good at one side, and now I'm trying to work on the other side and say, you know, how can I, and I'm asking the question, is it possible to have both?
Okay.
And that's kind of where I am in that journey of it.
That's a very good question. It's like the dog. It's simple, but it's complicated, right? So here's the thing. I always like to relate my relationship to the dog with a relationship to people relationship. And what I have found is that we're all trying to do something, right? And if I were to ask you, what are you trying to do with your dog? What's the ultimate goal here? To do training or Schützen work or whatever you're doing, what is the ultimate goal there? And usually what we find is something very minuscule, very insignificant to what we really want inside. And I talked once about not doing, but being a certain way. You know, we always want to do, but ultimately we should be a certain way, right? And so that's the personality of the dog, is pure in the beginning. It just wants to be what it is. Then we step in and start telling it what to do, right? So when we weigh the significance of doing something and being something, the being actually outweighs the doing. So what you really want is, you don't necessarily want to do obedience, because what is obedience work? It's training. What is training? Forcing a dog to do something they already know how to do. So what good is it? The key is the socialization. Can you socialize your dog with rabbits, birds, horses, other dogs, other animals? Then if you can socialize them to be with those kinds of things, they will naturally calm down, because the environment, the energy level of the environment is not being raised by you or the stimulant, right? So if we want a nice, calm dog, then that's the kind of things that we need to be doing with them. I have said many times that exercise is very overrated.
Yeah, you told me that on the phone, actually, when I spoke with you.
Right. And the reason I say that is because exercise is related to the hunt. Okay? If we go to the Serengeti jungle, you will never see animals running around that jungle unless they're chasing food. The excitement is related to the hunt, which is related to the kill, which is satisfying the stomach. So full circle.
Yeah.
Okay? The period at the end of it. Now, when trainers or American sportsmen were working with dogs, they were using props. Let's say we want the Labrador Retriever to jump into the lake and bring out the bird. Well, at first they start with a piece of wood, and then it gets softer and softer and softer, and then the fake bird, then the real bird, then the dog says, I know my purpose in life. It's to jump in there, bring that bird back. That's a working dog. Okay? We don't have working dogs today. We don't have dogs that we need to help us hunt. We have pets. But the problem is that we're still been doing and using the props that were used to produce a working dog with our pets. So we've been waking up this hormone, this predatory hormone with our dogs, with the excitement, with the agility, with the crazy wild thinking and chasing things, and dogs are getting in trouble for that. That's why the shelters are filled with dogs, because they're so neurotic with this hyped up energy to grab a ball and shake it and kill it, or to chase a Frisbee or a stick or whatever it is that you're throwing. You wake up that hormone, right? That is not actually satisfying the stomach. So then that becomes a neurotic behavior. So now the dog says, well, how do I apply this to my life? Well, I'm going to chew up the electrical cords. I'm going to chew up the walls. I'm going to jump over fences. I'm going to do all the things that you taught me was happiness, this excitement. But it's not fulfilling my stomach. So it becomes this neurotic thing. So after a while, the person says, well, I can't control this dog. He's jumping the fence. He's chewing up my walls. He's scratching up my car. He's doing all these negative things. I got to get rid of this dog. I got to take him to the shelter. There's something wrong with him. So it's like a potter who makes a pot, and then he curses the pot after he's made it, and he says, I don't like that pot. Well, you made it. And that's what we've done with our dogs. Through raising the energy level up. When you know that that energy level is only designed for killing, we have to understand that our dog's food comes in a can, it comes in a bag. They don't need to kill to eat. It's laid out for them, right? So we don't need to wake up that hormone within the dog. Just as human beings, we have hormones inside of us that don't need to be woken up because it creates addictions and things like that, right? We become a different person because that hormone was woke up. And I think they lie dormant, and they're there in the human being and they're there in the dog for specific reasons, but we're in a different time period in our life when we don't need to be doing certain things. We don't need those hormones in order to survive, right? And that's why people say, well, we've evolved and we want to do positive reinforcement and we think negative is this and that. And I agree with them. Dogs don't need to be aggressive. They don't need to kill, right? But if that's the case, why are the people that are doing positive reinforcement, why are we actually doing those things that bring that and wake up that hormone within the dog? Toys that have squeaks in them, right? That look like animals. Balls that we chase. When they chase, we wake up that prey drive. We do everything to bring out the very thing that we don't want in our dog, and then we blame the dog for it. Now, I want to be fair in saying this, though. Why is it that some dogs can play those games and be fine and other dogs can't? Well, you have alphas, betas, subordinates, and omegas. We have dogs that have different relationship with life that they've gone through in life. And so a dog that's an alpha or a beta is a dog that's going to perceive chasing something a little different than a subordinate dog. Whereas a subordinate dog may only go to be assertive and dominant but never aggressive. Where an alpha or a beta can go to that level, you see? And so certain people, you and I are human beings, but maybe I like to tease or be teased. You may not be a person that likes to be teased, you know? It may make you feel a certain way. So you're not going to be enjoying that, or you're going to perceive it a different way, right? That's the reason why some dogs can do it and some dogs can't. But regardless to whether some can and some can't, we have to look at why we're actually doing it with our dog. Is it for our dog or is it for the human being? Sometimes we think society says, well, we've made all these toys for dogs to do this and do that, and they're predators. And you know, there's a time now, we're in the year 2015 coming up next, and we have to be responsible for the things that we know, you know. We have to be able to say, yeah, you know, I am waking up that predatory side in my dog, you know. I am the one that's doing that. But why are you doing it? Simply because you can? What's the end result there? You know, we have to be responsible for the knowledge that we actually get. There's an old saying that if you had known better, you would have done better, you know. So my belief is that today the laws have changed, or maybe I should not say they've changed, they've become more enforceable with dogs. Because I think the laws have always been there, but now we don't have predators. We have pets, right? Animal law is different now. Things that your dog do can be considered to be aggressive, and you pay a heavy price for that. The dog pays a heavy price for that. Whereas years ago, it was just a natural thing. Dogs kill cats. You know, dogs chase things. If you jump over in my yard and my dog bites you, well, you shouldn't have been on my private property, right? So things have changed. Now, if you reach over a fence, your dog bites someone, you're responsible for that. If your dog goes and kills a cat and that cat was the neighbor's pet, you're responsible for that, right? So since the laws are more enforced now that make it more difficult for dogs to be what we created them to be, then we have to be more responsible with bringing out and doing those things that we were doing years ago that was okay, that now is not okay. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to be responsible for that. And the people that are talking about positive reinforcement and they're against what they would consider negative reinforcement, I see them all the time waking up that hormone within the dog that's actually producing the very thing that they don't want. You see?
Mm.
And so they have to be responsible and say, yes, I'm teaching my dog to think with his mouth. Yes, I'm teaching him to chase something, right? Yes, this is not fulfilling his stomach. Yes, that makes sense that they chase things to kill, you know? But we don't want them to kill. We don't want them to kill.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't ignore that animals in the wild do aggressive things to survive. We can't ignore that. We can't ignore that alphas do discipline and domination. Not just alphas, but all pack members do it to the one below them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the law. And if we're very honest and we're not looking through our egos, we will say that, you know what? We do the same thing. Human beings do the same thing. And we expect more from our dogs than we do from ourselves. I've met people that dislike someone and they won't give it up. No legitimate reason other than that they damaged my ego of some sort. But I'm not going to give it up. I don't like that person. They'll tell everybody not to like that person. But then they have a dog and they say, why are you like this? I don't want you to be this way. Right? Not knowing that animals are able to emotionally read our hormonal state. So if you've got a negative energy, they feel that also. They may not know exactly what to do with it, but if they're with you long enough that you can imprint on them, then they will use it in a way that's really close to the way humans are. And I've seen dogs that are spoiled, jealous, don't know how to share, they're only tolerators, they refuse to play, right? And then when we see the owners and we talk to the owners, we see that they're the same way. It's the same thing. And now, the reason I'm saying that is because I see a lot of people every different days. I talk to people on the phone everywhere. In order for me to help dogs, I have to be able to see people, read people, right? And actually what I'm reading is, I'm reading how the dog is relating to the owner and how the dog relates to me. And what I find is that people imprint on their dogs the very thing that they don't want the dog to do, but it's the thing that they're trying to correct within themselves. That's where I see behaviors. So if you're having problems with your dog and you can't solve those problems, that's because there's a problem inside of you that you're not understanding. You can't control that problem, you see? But those who can take their ego away, actually you can't take it away, but to know that you have it is enough to control it, right? We can say, you know what, I got this problem, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm responsible for imprinting that on my dog. And you have to change. You have to have that paradigm shift. Every person that I have ever worked with that has not been able to get over a problem with their dog is something that they can't get over within themselves. Mm-hmm. You know? I see it all the time. Mm-hmm. But because I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist that's dealing with people, I don't feel responsible enough to really get into that because that's not what I do. But I just make people aware that that's what's happening, and then they can go back and go home and think about, yeah, you know, I am an asshole, or I do think like this, and
mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And that's what I do. I mean, that's how I've been able to be successful with dogs, because I look at myself for what it is. I see dogs. There's no pretense there. They are what they are. People, there's pretense. I can say, hey man, how you feel today? You'll say, I feel great. But you just came in the door maybe and told someone, I feel terrible. Right?
Yeah.
You know? And when you're alone with your dog and you project that energy, that emotion to them, who you really are, some people talk to themselves. They say negative things all the time, that negative energy. And that dog is sitting there reading the body language, that energy. right? And then the dog says, "You're my leader. This is what you want me to do?" Right? Even kids do that.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see kids saying things that parents have said and acting the way parents act. Dogs do the same thing. If you had a good friend and you walked in the door and that person says, "Well, hey, how's everything going? Everything's good?" And you say, "Yes, it's good." Then they can look at you, if they really know you, and they'll say, "No, man, what's wrong?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you say, "Well, this and that happened." Well, dogs see that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. They look at you, they see it.
I had a mentor tell me it's the story reality. The story is what you tell yourself to keep yourself going every day, and the reality is what the dog's telling you. You can say all you want. I already knew 10 minutes ago what was
Exactly.
going on, but keep talking, you know? yeah, sure. Because that's what they need in that moment or whatever. But,
Fantastic.
yeah.
So to get back to your original question, can you have it both? You know, it would be determined on how well you have neurotically changed your dog. How much passion did you put into Schitzen work?
Mm-hmm.
How much passion did you put into insignificant training, just strategic things that you're having them do? How much of passion did you put into that, you know?
Yeah, and the detail that you teach them that makes it even worse. Because now they're looking at your eyes and they go, "Did that mean something?"
Right.
Wait, like, "Oh, wait, you just turned your head. Should I be over here?" I mean, it happened to me one time where I had taught my dog one behavior, and it was so long ago when he was a puppy, and I wasn't even thinking. And I went to teach him something new, and I went to kind of use the same gesture,
Mm-hmm.
and he turned crazy because my legs were closed, and he was trying to get between my legs, and I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Mhm.
And it was something that I had put on a verbal command 10 months ago and not even thought about it again.
Mm-hmm.
But that gesture created neurotic in him because he knew he was right, but he wasn't doing it. It was almost like I robbed him of something. He was like, "Hey, dude, you're not being clear. No. This was on the agenda. You told me this is what it is, and you've actually given me food for it and toys and saying like this is right."
Exactly.
And then when I tried to do it, it was this panic where you have to he had a flat collar on. I had to hold him by the collar for a second and go, "Breathe, relax, slow down."
Mm-hmm.
And then around much slower because he was so I was almost like in his way
Mm-hmm.
of blocking what he wanted, which was fun. And that's where I start to get to is I enjoy the obedience part where my dog can do what I ask him to regardless of what he thinks it is, but there's also this part of me that feels like I'm just this in-between alley that he gets what he wants. Where I tell him down and he downs because we have relationship and things, but it's also the training anticipating the reward and not where. And I don't want to. Because I don't want to say I'm one of those people that's like food. I'm good at what I do, so I don't carry food all day. I've been very good at changing my reinforcement schedules and building relationship out of it, but I also know that once you've gone down that route and you've taught the dog those things, you are going to have to use food once in a while. There's something that the dog has to protect. If not, he loses hope. And what's the point of this?
Mm-hmm.
The hope is that I tell you lay down, then you're saying there's going to be something in it for me later.
Mm-hmm.
If I enjoy that part of it. I think it's fun. It's challenging and it's mental, but it's not. It's still from my end. It's the way I communicate verbally, not where I'm looking at him and his mom might go like this or something, and he where it's. I want to get more back, I think, to close my mouth with my dogs. If that.
Well, here's the deal. Maybe there's things within yourself that you feel you need structure with.
Oh yeah.
Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm talking about. We imprint that on our dogs.
Yep.
Okay? And so our dogs become confused when they really just want to be.
Mm-hmm.
We keep telling them what to do. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you want to become more balanced, then you have to find out, I always say that training is like a landscape garden. Everything is cut out so perfectly, looks good. We look back and we say that's beautiful, right? And then what I do is like a rainforest. You look at it and it looks chaotic. You see dogs everywhere, the energy flowing everywhere, and you say, wow, that's crazy, all of those dogs. But then, like the rainforest, when you look very closely, when you become still and look
Yes.
very closely at it, you see that everything is as it should be. Every weed is where it's supposed to be, and you look really close and you see the bugs and you see everything living harmoniously the way nature made it, right?
Yep.
That's being. That's being,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you take yourself and you implant yourself in that moment of thinking, being still, right? And then you don't have to try to control energy, you're flowing with it. And in flowing with the energy, you're actually controlling it. That's a very difficult thing to do for most people. But just like with dogs, they're simple-minded creatures. They're able to produce complex things. That's what we have to be. We have to be very simple-minded, but to perform complex things. I'm not talking about something that's simple. It is complex, but it requires that you look within yourself. So let me tell you what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my first day meeting you.
Yeah.
If you've got a dog that's doing what I heard you just say do, that I consider to be a neurotic dog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, a neurotic scale of 1 to 10, how much of this is genetic and how much of it is learned?
Mm-hmm.
So when we determine that the dog is a 2 or a 3 genetically, has a genetic predisposition to be hyper, right? That's normal. Is when we go in and try to connect to that and produce more of that, that's the learn part.
Mm-hmm.
So now on that scale of 1 to 10, when we finish, your dog comes out of the car, we see 10. But that's not who that dog really is. It's really a 2 or a 3.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So when I hear that, it tells me that that's the same struggle that's going on the inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to fix that, you have to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give it up. I don't play ball with my dog. I don't throw things. I don't roughhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't play tug of war. I don't play chase. I don't give them toys. I don't do any of those things. But what I do with my dogs is I socialize them with everything that is in my world, that I do every day, that I frequently do, whatever it is, if it's horses or rabbits or cats or whatever that may be, that's the energy that I project to them, that this is what we're going to be doing, but not through energy. That's why I say exercise is very overrated, because we don't need to do that, right? I mean, we hunter-gatherers, we're different now. The way we go to our grocery store and we buy food, we don't have to, right? So it's a different mindset. So if you feel the need to create excitement and energy in a dog that on a scale of 1 to 10 has a genetic predisposition to be something, and you connect to that, then you're creating more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to let that go.
And that's where I think what I was saying to you is I realized that the person, like sitting here with with you saying this is really kind of funny. It's the first person that I had mentioned in the beginning that had kind of got me on this path, told me about my energy level and directed me in that way, as saying like, hey, you have a lot of energy. This might be something fun for you, because go into some obedience and that kind of stuff. And now what I'm actually stepping back and from a lot of self-evaluation and changing, moving across the country and being around different energy of people, I, like you said, coming back now going, even though that's who I am, it's not who I want to be. I want to be somebody that is a little more calmer and focused and more aware of the people in my environment, and not so much about what's going on with me, but what's happening there. What can I do there?
That's so important what you just said.
And I never thought about it that way, but I mean, she didn't do it on purpose, but she kind of stuck me in that way because it was somebody I respected in the dog world saying like, hey, maybe this is, you love dogs and being calm with dogs isn't maybe your strength. Instead of saying maybe go work on that if that's something you're passionate about, she kind of told me to harness that energy into that, and it took me on a journey of a couple of years. I learned a lot of things, but I'm back on the original path.
Think about that. It's so profound. Isn't that what we do with our dogs?
Oh yeah.
We see that energy
And
in
then
them.
we got to burn it off.
Exactly.
And then now you're creating an aroused mindset all the time.
You're feeding it.
Yeah.
You see? And that's the concept in bite work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The concept is that if we do this, we're going to reduce the drive. How neurotic is that?
Yeah, well, I actually think part of what you were saying too is you were saying like what kind of people get those, and I see everything from, people who want like the SEAL Team 6 thing happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody goes, "That's going to be a great dog for me. I need to get a Malinois."
Right.
Right, and now they get a Malinois, and it's nippy on their palms, and they're doing all these things, and it's biting their kids' legs. And instead of meeting somebody that's saying like, "Hey, let's teach them to do something else," they're saying, "Oh no, we need to channel that into bite work."
Right.
Which is what kind of what you're saying, and that's where I've been stepping back, saying, "Well, no. Let's teach them not to do that first, and then we have that relationship. Now, if you would like to bite this thing because that's something you enjoy, then do it." And that's kind of what I had said to you before was like, well, you had asked me the first question we talked on the phone was, well, what is Schutzen? And it was a loaded question. I didn't know you were a lawyer because you knew the answer already. But I was trying to explain it to you, and one of the things I talked about was genetic selection. And you were probably laughing on the phone knowing that, yeah, they've been selected for that, but it doesn't mean that's what they have to be.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of my family members had a problem with alcohol. It doesn't mean that I have to be that way.
Exactly.
I saw and I could take changes and move the road, and that's kind of where I'm in a crossroads with a lot of things. I have a lot of knowledge in different parts, and I'm just trying to put that salad together of what's my perfect recipe starting at home with my dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and then what I can best share with people to get what they want and not lead them down the wrong path where it's, I have to get my dog, I had my last trainer told me I had to get up at 6 a.m. and play ball with him 20 minutes before I leave for work,
Mm-hmm.
instead of something else that wasn't so arousing, and that's where I'm starting to see, like what you were talking about, is it's not about running around for 45 minutes, it's bursts. They're like tennis players where they're running for, a minute or two to chase something, and if it doesn't work out, well, then I'm going to go back and save my energy for later.
Yeah, in fact, they don't even really do that. I mean, I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for so long that that's not what I see in dogs.
Okay.
What they do is they adapt to the situation. Okay? It's just like animals that when you're in an area and the space has been taken up because there's so many of them, and they begin to destroy each other because there's not enough space.
Mm-hmm.
They adapt. Okay? And in adapting, they do it in a peaceful way. They just go. Like when animals migrate, they just feel it and they do it. So when we're trying to get them to do certain things to burn off energy, we're going back to this again, then you're creating more energy, more of that same mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that is incorrect, what we're doing with our dogs. In fact, there are more dogs that are being destroyed today because of energy than any other time. Energy leading to destructive behavior because of the physical things that we're doing with our dogs. The bite work or biting anything, right? I mean, I have a mouth. I don't go around biting things, right? It's used for food, for opening things, that sort of thing. Same way with our dogs. But if you got them chasing and grabbing and shaking things and somehow you're thinking that that's satisfying that dog, most people, I've had one gentleman told me, he says, my dog enjoys killing things. He's a predator. That's what they do. Well, serial killers enjoy what they do too. Doesn't make it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessary. We have pets today. We don't have working dogs. If you live on a property where you need working dogs, then yes, I understand you having them.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people that are living in the city, living in apartments, communities where there are kids, and they are waking up this in their dog. And this is where I come in and say, hey, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. The dog is going to pay that price for you not understanding the way nature intended dogs to process information. People that have dogs, they treat them like babies, and then when they have a baby, they push the dog away, or the dog becomes jealous of the baby, and then they blame the dog for not understanding what the human actually wanted. Oh, I didn't mean for you to learn that, but now that you have, I got to get rid of you. I don't think that's fair. That's why I'm for those dogs that are aggressive. I feel that I'm there to save them, to let people understand that it's not the dog's fault the way he is. Ultimately, he's going to pay for it, but you created that within your dog because you didn't have the right knowledge, you know? And that's where I come in. So I'm going to ask you something.
Yeah.
With everything that you've been doing, how successful are you with being able to help people with their problems?
I just started to feel a little more confident in not my amount of knowledge that I could give to people, but practical step-by-step information I could give to them. So if they were saying, this is my problem was I had too many tools. So I could say, oh, we'll use some food here, or this is a place where I would do this, or and now I'm coming to a place where I'm trying to put all that together, and I know more than the average dog person, obviously, so I can help. I have really good dogs, so I have the ability to do this in my daily life. But I think it's not only seeing it, like you said, from the human perspective, but understanding what the dog's telling you and what they need. It's still a challenge. Like I'm still walking in and saying, like, I think this is what it is, instead of, okay, and it only comes with time, but this is what it is. You know, I've seen this before. Mm-hmm. People like you create dogs like this, and it's mm-hmm. not, you know, where I'm still getting, like, first couple times where you hear something on the phone and you kind of expect something, you get there and it's, I didn't think about it. If the wife was doing this, then yeah, that's going to cause this. And mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm very helpful, and but I'm trying to find the best way for me to get to the people I want to work with, my ideal client. And I'm going to say, I don't know if that kind of answers your question,
it does. I mean, but you do know more than the average person, and you know more than the professional person. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you that now.
Thank
you. You are going in the right direction. But what we got to work on is that you have to stop giving them too many tools.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they become obstacles for the dog. Dogs are expert at figuring out obstacles. You do this, so I do that. This is the way they think. You did this to me. That made me feel this way. Therefore, I'm going to do that. Mm-hmm. They don't say, oh, you did this to me because, mm-hmm. Do you understand?
Yep.
It's the feeling. So we have to be careful with what we're telling people to do. Treats for this, treats for that. The only time that you would use treats is for searching. I'm telling, for me, mm-hmm. Is for teaching them how to find something, your keys or something yep. like that, or teaching them a trick. Rollover, high five, mm-hmm. things like that, right? But for control, no. Mm-hmm. They're begging you. They want that treat. They're in a subordinate state of mind. That's how they learned it. They learned it in a subordinate state of mind. Roll over, I get the treat. That's submissive, subordinate state of mind. When a dog is in a dominant, aggressive state of mind, and you try to use that thing that you used when you taught him in a subordinate state of mind, doesn't work. That's why when you tell him to stay and he's aggressive and there's something that he wants to get, he breaks that stay. You don't have power anymore, and he's learned the behavior. He learned not only were you weak because you couldn't control him, but what you were telling him to do was insignificant. And actually, you were actually rewarding that thing because you created more energy when you put them in the stay. Stay creates energy if it's not done where a dog is fearful or apprehensive of something. If you teach stay in a positive way, you give them a treat to stay, then you are rewarding that negative thing that you really don't want. That's the problem with it. Look, I know that animals in the wild stay for one reason. They are afraid or apprehensive. Try to catch a dog that's in the street that doesn't want to be caught. He's going to stay away from you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what stay means to them. Okay? Nature tells a dog to lie down for one reason, to rest. We may have 1,000 reasons. Oh, lie down, stay, I'm going to go over here and get this and do that, and I'm going to bring this dog in, and we say, wow, he's smart because he can stay. A social dog can go wherever you want them to go, and they will be social. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I would like to see. You're a perfect person that I would like to see you get there, right? Where we do away with all the tricks. Or you can use the tricks, but don't use it as far as control.
Yep.
The control should come from socialization. When something is social, then it doesn't act neurotic. It acts social,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're going to go and empty the trash, you don't have to tell your dog to stay and go empty the trash. Because if I ask you, why did you do that? You'll say, because I'm training him. And I'll say, we're training him to do what? Training him to stay. Why? And then you get lost. Why do I want him to stay? Wow. No reason. The reason I told him to stay is because if we go to the trash can, he may run out in the street. He may go after the dog or the cat or the person. That's the reason why I made him stay. So that's called learned helplessness, because what the dog is learning is not helping him to deal with your fear, which is the dog, the cat, the person, right? So if you can teach the dog to go to the trash can without running across the street or going after the person or the dog, then you're socializing the dog with your fears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why positive reinforcement can be positively reinforcing negative behaviors. That's why we don't need it. That's great. People want to train. I mean, that's fine. If you don't have a problem with your dog, it is not revolved around aggression, then go ahead. If that's your sport, if that's what you want to do. But when you're dealing with aggression, which I see today, there are more dogs dying than ever before, with more trainers that are out here today. There are more trainers today,
Mm-hmm.
that are out here, and dogs are still dying. Shelters are overloaded with dogs. People are giving them up, right? Because they're not getting truthful information. They're getting accurate information, but it's not really truthful. That's where you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're stuck. I see a person, correct me if I'm wrong, I see a person that's trying to fix themselves. You don't get to want to fix dogs
Mm-hmm.
like that if you're not trying to right yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that, to me, the fairness in everything that I've learned from my dogs is because they've taught me. I mean, I've had, if we're going to get super personal, I mean, the first dog I got was from my father who passed away, and
Mhm.
he created a monster of a dog. But
Mhm.
many people, I mean, he's in the van right now, and I wasn't a dog trainer. I didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
And I did things that I would never want anybody to do just because I was frustrated.
Mm.
Push them, whatever. Like,
Mhm.
stop barking at the door, grab them.
Mhm.
And then I realized at one point where this is not solving the problem. I mean, this is, part of it was watching some TV shows and different things and realizing, if somebody told me to do something angry, it might make me do it, but it's not going to, make me do it,
Mhm.
want to be doing it. It's like I'm doing it because, like you said, I'm either, whatever. So I'm trying to, definitely with him, I've learned a lot about staying expectations and understanding of thing is going to be what he's going to do.
Mhm.
He's already had a lot that came in when I'm here, but I don't have to feed into that when he does something. Just because he does something doesn't mean I have to be emotionally changed by it.
Mhm.
And actually, if the more I emotionally change by his reaction, I can't help him now.
Exactly.
So I'm on his level. So I've learned a lot through him, and then I've just been trying to learn everything about the dog world. Like, I've been doing a lot of grooming lately with my Shih Tzu. I mean, I enjoy it all, and right now I'm, like I keep saying, I'm trying to, there's some things in my own life I with my dogs that I want to be a little bit more relaxing about. But ultimately it's about helping. If you're gonna be a dog trainer, you gotta help other people.
Right. So in the end, let me tell you how I kind of do things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't focus on what I don't want the dog to do.
Mm-hmm.
I only focus on the end result of what I want them to do. That's the only thing I focus on. What I want him to do, where I want to be with him. What does this person need from this dog? And when you focus on that, that's the energy that you get. And that dog picks up on that. That's why you can take a dog and get them to do this or that and give him back to the owner, and it doesn't work for them. Mm-hmm. Haven't you found that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, because you know what you want from the dog. But when you're trying to fix something that the owner doesn't want, and you focus on what the dog is doing that's wrong, oh, I don't want him to do that, I don't want him to do that, then you're going down the wrong path. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you only can focus on what you want from them. That's what I do all the time. Okay, I don't want you to go after other dogs. So I'm going to take you to those dogs. But I'm going to control the whole situation, you know? I'm going to introduce you and socialize you in a way that your hormones are working properly. I'm not going to restrict you so that your hormones are out of whack. Mm-hmm. Like you said, oh, I put the harness on him and he did this or he did that. Yep. We put the leash on him, we're going to go and see another dog. And if I see aggression, I'm going to pull back. If you watch my videos, you'll see sometimes I'm videoing from the other side of the fence. Okay, and that dog is just there. Hormones are working properly. No human interference going on. Yeah, there may sometimes be some aggressive behavior going down, but that's all part of it. You see what I'm saying? And if you understand that discipline, domination, aggression, and all of that is just part of it, and you're not looking at it as a negative thing. Remember, if you focus on that negative thing, that's what you're going to get.
Like anything in life.
Right. If you say this is negative reinforcement, and I don't want to do negative reinforcement and anything related to negative reinforcement, then you're producing that. That's why you can't be successful with the dog. But if you focus on what you want from him, I want you to be social with other dogs, I want to put you with other dogs, then that's what you're going to get. And that's why every dog I bring in here, I'm able to put him or her with other dogs, because that's what I focus on. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, the essence of what I'm saying is, that's what you have to do with you. Right? Mm-hmm. Only focus on what you want that's going to be good for you and your dog, or good for you and that client. You get it?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You can't think about your shortcomings. Okay? You can't. You can't fight that thing that's in you. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yep.
You have to let it go. You have to be. This is who I am, but that's who I'm going to be. That's how I do it. Mm-hmm. So that's my advice.
I appreciate that.
To you,
tremendously.
You know, that's my advice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, guys, that was a very profound and enlightening discussion.
Yeah.
Can't wait to share it with the Fouché Way community and Gary's community. Gary, could you tell us your website so we can share that with our Fouché Way family?
Sure. My website is balanceddogsllc.com. 2 D's in the middle, balanced ED, and then dogs, DOGS, LLC.com.
I like that.
Great. We'll put that on our website.
Thank you.
We can't wait to hear part 2. This was so interesting, and Gary's equipped with some knowledge and some insights, and you'll keep in touch with Brandon, I'm sure, and give us feedback. Follow us on the Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. Fouché Way Facebook page.
Fouché Way Facebook page, and keep in touch.
Yeah. You know, I want to say one last thing. You know, people. I guess it's actually necessary. I mean, I went through the same thing. I see what you're going through. That we have to make that circle, you know. And so, in making that circle, we have to keep an open mind. You know, that's the only way.
Yeah.
Because closed minds block you from making that transition. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, because I see what you're seeing. I've seen what you're seeing, you know,
and I respect that. That's why whenever I look for people that I want to share knowledge with, I'm looking for people that have seen things, because I haven't. Wisdom only comes from one way, time. That's it. And you know, I appreciate everything. Thank you very much for having me down.
Good.
Awesome. Thanks for a great interview.
Yeah.
little more formal things, retrieving and healing and play skills and some different things. So I started getting a little bit more involved there, and I feel like I've abandoned a little bit of where my heart is, which is in the woods with the dogs. So I've learned a lot about training and managing motivation and how to create precise behaviors and create good criteria. But I want to get back into a little bit more of what my dog's emotional state is as he is as a being, and not something that I've created through repetition of training or the possibilities of trainings or the environment he's in creating the arousal. So I've wanted to come to what I feel is a damn good expert.
Right. So Gary, you touched upon an important piece, which is the emotional state of yourself, and then how the dogs pick up on that and their emotional state. And I know Brandon really has a great emphasis on that and has a lot of insights to share. So perhaps, Brandon, you can give us some of your expertise and insights on the emotional states necessary.
You know, I'm happy to hear this. Anytime I hear someone that's talking like this, you know, intelligently about a subject that is so controversial, you know, it excites me, because it just lets me know that no matter how far we go, even in our personal life, the things that we do, we tend to
want to get these two dogs together, or these two dogs together, or why is this happening or that happening. So I did like everybody else does. I got online and started poking around, looking for books and videos and websites, and I was blessed to find a couple people that were at a point where they were in the growing phase themselves, but already had gone through a couple speed bumps on the learning pathway of dog training. And they showed me where I could save some time and who to learn certain tools from and different strategies for training. And I've spent probably the last 5 years traveling and being with some of the best dog trainers, behaviors, animal, whatever you want to call them, just really intelligent, well thought out people. And I'm right now just trying to put the whole salad together to be what I really want to share with people.
Great. We're so glad to have you here today, and thanks for sharing.
Right.
So Gary, I was wondering, you recently connected with Brandon, and what about Brandon and the Fouché Way piqued your interest, and what kind of insights are you looking to gain as you connect with Brandon?
Sure. So like I said in the beginning, the first 5 years of my business, it was me in the woods with the dogs. I was hiking, very primal, people would say. I really enjoy just being with the dogs. And then I started to watch videos and getting more intrigued in how to manipulate behavior, and I started to get interested in...
Come back to the simple thing, right?
They always say go with your gut.
We always come back to smelling the flowers, watching the sunset, or right? And that's exactly what I heard from what you just said. And I laughed because I remember in the beginning, a lot of people don't know this story about me, but it actually started in the Mojave Desert for me, living with the dogs and raising puppies and having them do just dog things, and living from a concept of observation rather than interfering with the behaviors of dogs, and seeing that aggression was really the highest form of communication. You know, it's just dogs trying to communicate with each other through what we would consider to be aggressive behavior or dominant behavior, which today has, for some strange reason, become a bad word, right? We don't want to hear about discipline. We don't want to hear about domination. We don't want to hear about aggression. But when I was growing up, that's all I saw with the dogs. Now, if you grow up looking at that, and you start in the beginning and you end up on the end of it, in other words, you see the aggression, the dominance, the hierarchy, the sense of entitlement, and then on the other side you see dogs come together and be friends and live together, right? Then you don't see it as a bad word. You see it for what it is, right? And so when I hear this concept of positive and negative reinforcement, I say it's not positive or negative, it's nature, right? And so from that, I've developed this concept of relationship, which is more important, socialization, which is more important. I've seen animals socialize with creatures that you wouldn't think that they would, but they do it naturally, you know, without our interference. They do it not necessarily from the concept of predatory behavior, but from curiosity, you know. And so when we look at it like that, you say, wow, I've been looking at this thing wrong all my life, right? Until you grow up living in the woods with the dogs. And when I say grow up, I mean mentally watching them. And you say, you know what? I think this is the key. So you had the same feelings that I had. And what happens is when you get away from that, you feel this yearning inside of you. And some people can realize what they need to do with it, and some can't. And yes, it is going back into the woods. Not necessarily physically, but mentally remembering the things that you saw, the things that took place that were really relevant, you know? And then you do away with all the things that you've been reading and seeing in terms of training and cognitive learning and all of that stuff. Those are just words that human beings put on those things, right? The key.
Good afternoon, Fouché Way family. This is Patricia Fitzgerald, and I'm here at the Brandon Fouché Dog Rehabilitation Center in Los Angeles. And today we have a very special guest, Gary Cassera, who has come to visit Brandon. And Gary is a dog behaviorist who's from Northern California, and he came here to share some insights and ask some questions and explore a lot of the varieties of the ways we look at dog psychology. And we're looking to gain some insights from Gary and from Brandon. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Gary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your qualifications, your passions, anything you'd like to share as an intro?
Absolutely. Like Patricia said, my name is Gary Cassera. I lived in New Jersey for 32 years. I moved out to California 2 years ago. In New Jersey, I have a pack walk and dog walking business that's been in operation for 7 years now. And we do large group walks. We do a little bit of in-home pet care. We specialize in the dogs that need a little bit more attention, a little bit more help on the leash. Not your average happy-go-lucky golden retriever. And those customers are very helpful, are very thankful that we are able to help them out. I've had customers that hadn't been on vacations in 5 years because they were afraid their dog was going to bite somebody or whatever, and I had a lady cry in my arms, literally saying, "I can't believe I can go on vacation." And I remember her, so she's still a client to this day. But so I did that for many years, and I got involved with just saying, "Hey, I want to learn more."